Welcome back to A Quick Brew.
A quick brew.
Cheers, James.
Cheers, buddy.
It's not lost on me that is optimized towards the visual audience as opposed to the audio listeners who won't obviously see us doing a virtual
We'll have to get a
mug.
clink noise.
Ah, yes, sound effects.
We need a soundboard with a clink.
That's for you. You're the
Okay.
soundboard guy.
I'll get on that.
Put that on the list. So we kick off today with, I think, exciting news.
Yes,
and this is a first for the show. It's still in its infancy, but we have a guest. So Craig Kelly is someone from your network. He's working at Aquabridge as an associate solicitor at the moment. Have I got that right?
Yes, and he's an all-round great guy.
Okay. I mean, what more could he want?
What more
Obviously,
could
you
he
can't
want?
hear that, but listening back, I'm sure he'll be chuffed, mate. So without further ado, we'll invite him in.
I try to be like Craig Kelly. And here he is. Welcome, Craig. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you very much.
So, Craig, I also believe that you are the number 4 LinkedIn influencer for the legal network.
Number 2.
Oh, no, number 2.
I don't want, don't want to.
Definitely number 2. So, I mean, tell us a bit about that, Craig. I mean, what really evolved from that, and how did that happen?
So just for perspective, for the last 4 or 5 years, I've been posting quite heavily on LinkedIn, and I saw that there was a marketing company that ran what's called the LinkedIn influencer. And they just sort of picked up my statistics, and it's ranging from your engagement, impressions, likes, comments, etc., etc. So I think I've entered 3 times now, come 5th, 2nd, and 2nd for the last couple of quarters. So yeah,
Nice. No, that's awesome work. And maybe we could do like a separate podcast where we have you on, where you can maybe talk people through the strategy of that. One thing that I think I certainly found is whatever's changed in LinkedIn has killed my engagement, killed my
I think that's your
activity,
content, mate.
and killed it. It could be that. It could just be as simple as that.
You can't blame the algorithm. It's literally what you're pumping out there.
Don't blame somebody else. Start putting out some decent content.
I think that you're right, because the algorithm is forever changing, and there's LinkedIn gurus that would tell you why and what's working, what isn't. What I've noticed, and strikingly just yesterday, someone liked a comment of mine. So not a post, but they liked a comment of mine from 6 years ago. Now, I don't know how that works, why that works, but I do know that I wouldn't anticipate something I put on a platform 6 years ago to suddenly be getting any kind of traction.
You haven't noticed anybody in any bus stops outside your house or anything, or?
Not recently. No, not recently.
Only you.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, that's, I mean, I think people have been speaking a lot recently, haven't they, about LinkedIn resurfacing some posts from maybe 2 or 3 or 4 weeks ago. And whilst it's good that content can have longevity, I think that if you're looking at content that's time sensitive, so an event, an offer, a quick happy bank holiday, it kind of loses its impact if it's a month late. So I'm not sure what's happening there on the side of LinkedIn.
No, what's happening? Craig will know from the times that I've known Craig for, it's got to be coming up for 10 years now. Craig will know from like when I was my Southend United days, I'd post a lot of the events on LinkedIn. I'd get responses from that. Then people would book onto the events or networking events and such that we were hosting. So yeah, completely agree that with the time critical and the time sensitive matters. But as we do try to keep this to 15 minutes, should we get on to the topic of which Craig specializes in? And that is, what is it that Craig specializes in? No, we really appreciate you having you here, Craig. And we were going to talk to you a bit about shareholder agreements. One of the reasons we got you on was me and David have been talking about shareholder agreements and commercial law. And and we thought, what better person to bring onto the podcast other than the Craig Kelly himself?
Number 2, legal influencer. Absolutely. So I think I don't want to get a reputation for being grumpy. However, I do often have a gripe. I wonder, Craig, from your perspective, any gripes in your in your sphere at the moment? Yeah, how are you seeing it
Or
at the
in
moment?
life.
Well, how long have we got?
Wow.
15 minutes. I don't think that would cover life, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
But no, from a legal perspective, I suppose the legal profession is, on the face of it, it's long hours, hard work, which it is indeed. But I suppose it's getting better. I think the flexible working now in place and being able to work from home and just having that into the equation, it really, really helps because the job isn't a 9 to 5. I think when you're coming into that, it's not going to be, and clients are not 9 to 5. If a client has a lunch break at 1 till 2 and, oh, can we come in and see you to sign some paperwork, then you're going to have to be there. You're going to, even if you've got something, you're going to have to do that because it is a client facing industry. They're paying a lot of money for your services, so you need to be available. And I think the profession is getting better. From my perspective, I feel that the way that technology is moving on, the way the working environment's moving on, it's completely different to when I got into the industry 10 years ago. So from my perspective, I think it's moving in the positive, right direction for me personally. And I think I was saying to you guys earlier, when I left university, I was working packing sponges in a factory for 3 years because I couldn't find a job. So I'm happy and excited to be in the industry, which I trained for many, many years. So I think from my perspective, I try and look at it on the positives. And I think there are a lot of good partners, leaders out there now in the legal industry that are pushing for better working environment, working conditions. So I think it is an industry which is on the up, but some people may disagree with that. But from what I'm seeing personally at my firm and what we are doing, it's going in the right direction.
That's
Yeah,
great.
I like that point. It's surrounding that around being thankful for where you are. I think we can all say here we've all been at various different stages within our careers, and we're all thankful and relatively positive people, apart from Grumpy David, obviously. But I mean, I'm not sure if either of you know this story, but back in my bigger days, shall we say, I've always seemed to have fluctuated with weight. My biggest, I was 19 stone 8. At my best, I was 10 stone 8. I'd lost 9 stone. But I used to work at McDonald's and I got fired from McDonald's because I kind of had a one for you, one for me policy
Oh,
while I was
wow.
working there. Whilst I was taken through to be fired from said job from McDonald's and for the reason stated, they were like, James, you're going to have to go. You're eating the food. And I was going, no, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. Little did I know when he turned around and was like, "James, you've still got a bit of ketchup and onion on your cheek."
A
So, yeah,
mess.
a mess. It was a complete and utter mess, and that was
Yeah.
my second job at 15. I bet there's not a lot of people that can say that anymore either. Not a lot of people that can say, their second job at 15. But yeah, I like that point, Craig, surrounding, to be thankful from where you are.
I love positivity on the pod. This should be a positive pod. Interestingly, as well, though, Craig, and something that I picked up on, we all probably think of solicitors and the legal profession as being a little archaic, some leather-bound indexed books on the walls and mahogany suite of offices. But things are changing, aren't they? And the
Oh,
idea that you
that's
are
Craig's living room.
remote.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, that's right. But the idea that you're working remotely, the idea that you're probably using e-signatures for certain work these days, the needle's moved, hasn't it? And it's probably as an industry embracing evolution in that way. Is that fair?
Oh, massively, yeah. And we are as paperless as possible as we can be. I remember when I started as a trainee, my supervisor would have all her files all stacked up on her desk. She would do the dictation for her secretary, the emails get done.
Yeah.
But that's how they were taught. That's how it was then. And, probably dictation was probably seen as a modern great idea back then. So but we've sort of moved on from that now. We have great case management systems. So when we get paperwork in, it's scanned to the file, it's saved onto the file. That then is then recycled the paper if it needs to be. And a lot of, like you said, we don't send out massive amounts of paper, especially from a corporate side. I can't talk for litigation or property because I don't work in those sort of those areas. But from our perspective, we are very much electronic. Just makes life a lot simpler. Completion day now is a lot easier. Just on the DocuSign, make the phone call, and it's done. It's funny because I used to hear about like previously 20 years ago when deals used to complete, that parties used to get round in the boardroom and there'd be drinks and there would be the sign of the papers and,
Yeah.
yeah.
I've been a part of some of those events in the past.
I mean, I love seeing some of your content around it because I like how you try to make it relevant by using like fun images or things that you've seen and things that you've noticed. So like surrounding like commercial law and shareholder agreements, and that's really what you specialize in, isn't it? Shareholder agreements. Where can that go really wrong? Basically, when there isn't one in place.
I think it's when you have family and friends getting into business together. For me, that is the number one. Especially, there's a lot of things, especially when you're in a startup business. You're in with your family and friends, and you think nothing's going to go wrong. We haven't really got much money to start up with at the beginning, so we're gonna agree on everything. So let's just go see how it goes. And I've seen some horror stories, especially in the past, where you have two people getting into business together. You have one that's the brains behind it, the one that does all the paper, the admin, this sort of thing. And then you have another person who goes out, gets the work, gets the clients. They're the ones that have built those relationships. Now, then they think to themselves, well, I don't need him anymore. I'm the one with the clients. I'm on this. I'm just going to take everything with me and I'm going to go and start up on my own. Now, if you get a shareholders agreement in place, you can put restrictions on outgoing shareholders like that. So then effectively, the business is not going to completely die if one person leaves and just takes all the clients. You can have restrictions on staff as well, taking best members of staff, because you guys may have seen this in the past where someone's left the company and said, oh, actually, we want to take Joe or Sharon with us.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, your best member of staff has gone. And if you haven't got anything in place to protect yourself, then it could be catastrophic later on down the line.
That's exactly what happened with me and my, not the bad side of it. I was quite fortunate, but when I set up Jam Entertainment, my and my best friend Chris, that were in the bands together, we noticed a gap in the market. There was no real agencies pushing for that corporate work. They were stuck to the working men's clubs, sending a band in on a Friday. And so we set up the Jam Entertainment, which ended up being really successful. There was no shareholder agreement in place at that time. We never even really considered getting one. We didn't fall out. I decided to step out of the entertainment industry purely because it's not a business for a family man. Especially as I was lead singer and guitarist in one of the bands as well. One weekend I could be in Scotland, I could be in Spain, Germany, whichever. Unfortunately, at that time, Chris offered me. It was nowhere near what the company value was worth at the time, but it was a nice little chunk for me moving down south, and I accepted it. But there is so many horror stories where it doesn't go like that.
Mm.
I mean, David, I'm sure you've seen.
Yeah, I've seen quite a bit of it, and I work within the recruitment industry, Craig. So it's quite transient. Obviously, relatively low barrier to entry in terms of starting up an agency, and particularly if you have a portfolio of clients who you might immediately go after. But in terms of that poaching, that's always something that's probably ever present in those contracts, certainly within shareholder agreements. Is 50-50 ever a good idea? Because, two people each have an equal say, irrespective of the paperwork. What's your experience there? Because you can, I guess, get to loggerheads and have all sorts of trouble, even if the paperwork's in place, can you? Or...
Yeah, so you have what's called deadlock provisions in your shareholders agreement. So if there is a deadlock, then there's a mechanism there for you to have in place to have it resolved. The mechanisms are that you go and get an independent person who's an expert in this sort of area, or someone that you trust, like your accountant, for example. Then they will be able to, just thinking of the top of the head of an expert, it could be, or the worst comes to the worst, the company's just dissolved and you just both go your separate ways if you can't agree. So in a deadlock provision, yeah. So there are things in there, and also there's always things that people get confused about which is understandable. Being a shareholder and a director are two totally separate things. So you need to know which hat you're wearing at the time. So knowing which rights you have at the time is also a big major aspect. So especially if you're investing in a company, for example, and you want day-to-day running of the business, then you want to be on the board. But if not, silent shareholder, just collecting your dividends, then that's the way forward.
Yeah.
But I suppose that's another whole podcast to talk about and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I thought the way to break a deadlock was an arm wrestle, but obviously
Yeah,
that's
maybe.
not.
Yeah, that could be done. Yeah, I suppose
Okay.
we could add that to a group. Well, yeah, there we go.
Yeah,
Yeah, just doing my bit. Just doing my bit. No,
Yeah.
that's really interesting and actually, yeah, quite insightful. So thank you for that. Anything else, Craig, on your side of things that you would like to share, little pearls of wisdom or something that perhaps our audience may
give us
find
like
interesting?
a final thought.
Hmm.
It was like Craig Kelly's final thought.
Craig
like
Kelly's final thought. So I think
like a little nugget.
From a legal perspective, I suppose if you are in business, whether you're setting up or you're halfway through or whatever you're doing, just always having those agreements in place and knowing what you are doing. And I know it's probably not the greatest words of wisdom, but having those paperwork things. I will say, for example, if you're providing a service or selling goods, having terms and conditions in place to sell those goods and services is great. So then you know exactly what you're doing. So if someone says, well, I'm not paying you for this because of this, then you've got also the paperwork shows that this is, and then you've always got an avenue then to go down to be able to claim that back. And also if in 5 years the whole aim was to sell your business, think from the perspective of the buyer. What would you want to see and what would you want to have in place? So having your business in a great position from the start, right the way to selling, because the buyer's going to want to know everything
All of
and
the historic
want to see
data.
everything in place. Have your paperwork in place, have everything in place, and try and put yourself on the other side. And what would you want to see? And then if you got that in place, then you'll be in good stead, I think, moving forward.
I think it's a pearl of wisdom.
That is a pearl of wisdom. And I like that saying that to summarize, if you're wanting to sell a business, think like a buyer.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
One final one for me on that then, Craig, because I think everyone thinks of legal advice as potentially costly advice. Early days, you're trying to get paperwork in place and structure yourself for growth. Is there a relatively sort of low cost way of getting some paperwork in place, or is it just an investment you should be justifying?
I think it's more the cost of what it would cost you if it wasn't.
Of
Yeah.
course, yeah.
I think from the perspective of, you know, what we've got out there in with AI and ChatGPT, being able to put these documents together, and Google, you know, you could probably Google shareholder agreement today. You could download it. You could fill the names and stuff in there. But in the whole 10 years I've been doing this, I've never done 2 shareholder agreements that are the same, because your business is bespoke to you, and what will work for your business might not work for somebody else's. And if there's incorrect information in those documents, if something does come up and there's a dispute or something like that, and your paperwork's not correct to what you do, then it could be disastrous. So having everything in place from the start and just making sure, yes, it's a big investment, but I think if you are looking to start up your own business, I think that should be a cost aspect that you should consider, because like James said, further down the line, if something goes wrong, it end up costing you a lot more.
Yeah. Can you afford not to have it? Really
Excellent.
appreciate it. Thank you very much, Craig. A pleasure as our first guest on the pod.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you very much. Yeah.
And we'll hope to have you back, buddy.
Yep. More than happy to.
Great stuff. Thank you.
Yes, thanks very much. Thank you. Bye.
Cheers, Craig. Bye-bye. So, James, there you go. First
Nice.
guest done. On to the next one. I hope you guys enjoyed. And
Nice to know you, definitely, buddy.
Speak to you all soon.